You see, I'm wearing a welding shield, a welding helmet, and wanted to just do a quick little review of this Leeta LT 160 amp welder generator. It's a new toy I got on sale. Of course, Chinese made, manufactured and basically sold here in Thailand. As you can see, as a generator, it puts out up to 500 watts, 220 volts DC. I haven't tried that portion of it. I mainly bought it for the welder side of it. So it can go up to 160 amps. The only issue, it's got a 7 horsepower engine. And I just want to learn to weld. I've been wanting to learn to weld for a while. And this is basically a standalone arc generator. Runs off gasoline, benzene, 91 I got in it, and 7 horsepower. I believe it's a 4-stroke engine, auto choke here, and coil start. And so because it doesn't, like normal welders, people are used to inverter welders, they'll have amperage control where they can set the amount of amps that go into the weld here, but this doesn't have one, so you have to control the amps through your RPM of the engine, which you can control through the throttle. There's throttle right here. And so yeah, so it's taking a little to get used to, but its range, according to its the manufacturer, is, sorry, you can see the range here. It's puts out as a welder 24 to 30 volts at 80 to 160 amps, which is pretty high for some lightweight metal. But apparently it can support up to, it's ideal for up to 3.2 millimeter rods. I've got 2.6 millimeter electrodes here, and so apparently you're only supposed to really weld metal up to 3.6 meters, but it's a high amperage range, 80 to 160 amps, so it's not really ideal for very low amperage requirements for welding, but it's good to learn. And so I've done some of my first welds. You can tell that I'm not a professional here. Is I've just welded this bracket to these stakes here and welded these stakes together. I just wanted to get hang of it, how to start the arc. And I found out with this welder that because it needs, you know, it runs at 80 to 100 amps, you know, anything low, really RPMs, it doesn't really get started for thicker metals. But that's just the science of welding to learn. And so I've done this bracket, really horrible. You can see my beads are very sloppy, but I'm starting to get the hang of how the arc starts and how to control the molten puddle, as they call it. And so ideally for me, if I can learn how to do some basic welds of, you know, 2 to 3 millimeter thick pieces of carbon metal, maybe try my hand at some thicker, whatchamacallit, not sheet metal, but stainless steel, doing arc welding with this, then definitely when I move to another inverter welder where I can precisely control the amps and I got the hang of it, that should be much easier. But I'm going to try to do a demonstration right here, just so you guys can see my amateur self. But most importantly, as you'll see, is we want to emphasize safety. So we've got our auto darkening helmet. This is really good. It stops sparks going everywhere. You want to make sure you're in a well ventilated area, of course, as everyone will tell you, and have the proper clothes to protect you from some of the slag that might pop out. And of course, gloves are very hot, especially because the metal will really get hot. So touching the metal, especially right after you weld, moving it around, you should have some water to cool it down. I've just been cooling this scrap metal down in some puddles of rain water out here, just because it's real hot. And then of course you want to have yourself a nice little slag hammer. I'm just using this cheap little hammer for now, as I learned. But yeah, so I'll do it with some practice with some scrap metal, emphasizing safety. Now I'm gonna do this other one right here, this other bracket onto this metal plate, just for demonstration purposes. But first, got to start her up. So let me just turn this guy on, this girl, guy, whatever gender you want the motor to be. All right. So I'm gonna make sure. Start it right up. Start that up. That should be enough RPM to keep my weld going, right? So, safety first. Oh no! My welding rod is out, so I have to go on. Yeah, ready? Let's go. Let's get our hot. Okay, obviously I've burned some of the wood. So another safety point is you need a proper steel metal table workbench. I'm working on the back of my van in this cheap plywood floor, and so that's what's smoking right now. But yeah, it is very, very hot right now, so I don't want to attempt to try to touch this barehanded. Ooh, smoke gas. So you probably should work with a mask other than have ventilation if you burn something like this. That's wood burning, by the way, not metal. The metal burning the wood. So yeah, safety first. But learn from me. You're a beginner. Tell me what I'm doing wrong. Of course, I know I'm doing wrong. And yeah, it's going to be super hot. I don't want to even try to touch it with these gloves. I can kind of do it over like that. You can see it's melted the wood layer, and it's glued to the bottom. But yeah, it's definitely welded together. It works. So yeah, I paid 7,000 baht with delivery, so that's like $220. It's a standalone welder generator. It holds about 3 liters, about a gallon of gas. I don't know if my math's on or off. Yeah, about a gallon, so about 3.2 liters, 3.4 liters. And yeah, can transport. It only weighs about 37 kilos, so I can easily transport around. And it also, like, it doubles up as a DC generator. It says 220 volts, so apparently there's tools that can run AC 220 volt that can also run on DC. But yeah, I haven't need to test that yet, but it would be, you know, good emergency, or I can use it as a very low wattage grinder to help with whatever welds. But yeah, the idea right now is just to learn how to weld. Let me just go cool this down real quick in some water. Pot over here, just scrap metal, don't worry, I'm not doing any real job with this. Woo! So a proper workshop, yeah, you definitely want to have a proper workshop. Make sure all this is done. Have the proper tools, every safety, all the stuff, ventilation. I can't tell you how happy I got this fucking welding helmet. Like, if you bought, I saw the same model here was being sold in one of the shops for like $30, 1,000 baht or so, but I got it at an auction site, a local auction site where they sell some good and cheap stuff for auction, and I got it, ended up getting for like 150, 200 baht, so like, you know, $7, $8. Yeah, and it's good. It's an auto darkening. It's auto adjustable. I can just adjust it right on my head. Tightness, and it does the trick. It keeps. I mean, you get just standalone goggles, but full-on face shield is great. So I'm glad I'm finally learning how to weld. I know I'm doing everything wrong. So this is not how to. Obviously, this is just me kind of reviewing a cheap way for someone who's always wanted to learn. it's a very good skill, especially if you plan to build a house or workshop or anything out off the grid remotely, to be able to have. Originally I was just going to buy a proper like 5-6 kilowatt generator, and I read that there's a lot of issues with, I mean of course run an inverter generator welder, but it's hard to keep those things constant sometimes because of the you need like a pure sine wave, and a lot of these generators they'll fluctuate with their waves of electricity, so they're not ideal. But being this is a standalone welder generator, I think it was good for the learning, and it should help me learn to do some more basic farm work welding, something I think every young man or old man like myself, I'm not old quite, I'm getting there, late 30s, skill they should have if they want to be independent and able to fix things and build things around the farm. I'm not on the farm yet, I'm still in the city, but when push comes to shove, I definitely want to be ready. So, and of course wire brushes and stuff like that. This is a horrible weld job compared to what I know should look like. And a lot of it is also not just the technique, but it's also using the right welding rod and getting the right amperage. As I said, like this one I can't really control the amperage precisely other than adjusting the throttle and the rounds per minute, so I can get a range of between 80 and 160 amps, which is really for like exactly 3-4 millimeter, 5 millimeter maybe carbon steel, and 2.6 to 3.4 millimeter electrodes. So yeah, obviously that's an art and a science in itself to get it right, but I just wanted to make sure I know how to get basic welds going and understand the process of how arcs get started and how to maintain an arc in a molten puddle that forms your fusion of metals, of carbon steel anyway, as I'm learning now, because that is a very interesting concept before you move on. But yeah, I don't know if you're going to really be able to see, but that's definitely welded together. And so, not the prettiest thing. I could grind it down, make it a little bit nicer. You're not going to really be able to focus, but anyway, I'm happy with my learning today. 2 hours of practice. Practice makes perfect, as they say. And so with that, I'm going to sign off on this video and just kind of give you a view of my location here. Just doing it on a little driveway near my apartment on a road on a, it's not really any direct residential area that I'm bothering right now with my generator, but as you can see, it's portable, fill it with gas, you can just weld wherever on the spot, and I definitely recommend it. I don't know about those of you in North America or Europe about how easily you can get it shipped, but I'm sure you can find different versions over there, but probably more in the $400 or $500 ranges. Okay, thank you.